Good morning, everyone. Before I start, I'll start with a short video that'll give you context on why we do what we do. Just play that for 15-20 seconds. It'll become like this, then it'll become like this. So circle, when you open it up, cut the diagram and open the diagram like this using, let's say, a radius. You can convert like circle to something like this. When you open the circle, first it will become like this, then it will become like this. So circle, when you open it up, it will become a line. This is what we used to do before. I used to stand in the middle of that six-sided screen. You can see three big screens on this side and three on the other side, and teach thousands of students like this in stadiums. That's almost 25,000 students learning simultaneously. It shows two sides of the story. On one side, it shows all the challenges in the system. And on the other side, the positive side is students are hungry to learn. The reason why they used to sit like this for 3 to 4 hours at a stretch, and these are high school students, clearly showing that students in India, they're very hungry, very aspirational, and that's going to be our biggest advantage. Now, from here, we had the conviction to move from stadiums to smartphones, from those big screens to smaller screens, thereby making it interactive, thereby making it personalized based on the proficiency level of the student. Before I talk about the entrepreneurial journey, I would want the biggest, the impact which we are able to create because of this, where instead of just teaching a few thousand students in big cities in India, today we are able to make a big difference to millions of students, whether they are in the smallest villages or the biggest cities. Let me introduce myself. I'm Baiju Ravindran. I've been lucky many times like this before. I was lucky to be born to teacher parents who taught me how to walk, talk, and teach with humility. It is because of them that my dream always was to teach, which I believe is the noblest of all the professions. I was lucky to be born in a small village, which taught me to dream big and fight hard and solve for it. My students like my style of teaching, and I was lucky that some of them joined me to teach more and more students. Today, they are my co-founders. I was lucky that my startup went online when India went digital. I was really lucky to be to be trusted by some of the world's biggest impact investors, and this list can go on and on and on. But I have only one mission in life: to make everyone fall in love with learning, to create more and more active learning, and that's more and more active learners, which I believe is the most important skill today. How do we create continuous learners? How do you get them ready for the unforeseen jobs of tomorrow? So every student who is learning across our platforms, slowly but surely, they are becoming more and more active from the passive learners whom they are today. And everything we do at Byju's revolves this idea around how do we create that love for learning, thereby creating effectiveness, thereby making them better learners to help them successful in life. Now, I'll talk about the story. I'll dramatize the story by telling that I come from a small village, and that's a fact. But contrary to what people think, it's a huge advantage. Growing up in a village like that is what makes us extremely positive and highly aspirational. You actually learn how to navigate challenges and uncertainties in our villages and small towns. I always tell you, put me anywhere, I'll come out of it. It's in a village where you learn how to blindly trust people, because we trust each other. And the most important lesson from me from those growing up years is actually how to treat everyone equally. It's almost like there is no one superior and there is no one inferior. If you approach everything with this attitude, you will only go one way. You'll continue progressing in life. To go one level deeper, so I went to a government school. That might give you a lot more confidence. I'm sure most of you maybe are going to an English medium school. I went to a government school, a Malayalam medium school, been a self-learner throughout, and the conviction on self-learning is actually from within. I used to teach myself first, and then I used to teach kids in the village, in school, and then later in college. This love for learning math and teaching math ended up becoming big. And still in that pursuit of how to make it bigger, more importantly, better. Even the average English with my heavy accent, which you are hearing from me, is what I've learned by listening to cricket commentary on radio. They were my first lessons on contextual learning. Because when you learn things which the way through which you like, mediums through which you like, you learn, you actually love learning. I never started this as business. What started off with teaching with a few friends, around 30-35 students in my first formal class, went on to scaling like a geometric progression to few thousand students in auditoriums. And then later, when that was not enough, we were forced to move to stadiums. And we had, so like thinking big was always part of the game, because most of the people, when you move from a classroom to an auditorium or from an auditorium to a stadium, first itself, the thinking that can we do it in a stadium itself is where like most of us actually accept failure. So thinking big was part of the game, but that's only 50%. What the other 50%, what is required to make it big, what is required to pursue our dreams with relentless passion, is what I'll try covering through my entrepreneurial journey. Seeing students queuing up like this to catch the front row seats and then sitting with pin drop silence, and I'm talking about thousands of students, made me realize that what I was doing is something special, and that was my calling. A clear case scenario of passion intersecting with a real need. To capture the whole story in one sentence, I'm an engineer by chance, a teacher by choice, which made me an entrepreneur by chance. Now, though I use the word chance multiple times, you might think that it's all about chance. But what is important, there is no substitute for hard work. Some of you might think that these guys came from somewhere and suddenly raised a lot of money and got lucky, because that's what media writes about. There was a time in those initial years where I used to travel to 9 cities every week. Did that all 365 days without a single day break for almost 3 years non-stop. Luck may or may not work, but hard work works. Trust me, hard work works. And it's still the same today. Like we are hungrier than ever before, aspirational than ever before. There is no scope for complacency. And if complacency sets in, then the game is over. As people say, in business and politics, it's never about winning. It's all about how do you stay in the game? How do you stay in an infinite game where you are able to do things which you like forever? The day you think you are successful, the game is actually over. Now, why we did this? It's fortunate to be in a sector where like we've been of positive relevance even during a pandemic like this. Education is actually the most empowering force in the world. It creates knowledge, it instills confidence, and breaks down barriers of opportunity. When we combine technology with education to reach and teach all, we are not just making education accessible, but actually building a very powerful and future-ready nation and a better world for the future generations. And we live in a country where education is possibly the only way for most of us to make it big, and that's true in many parts of the world. Quality education is actually what makes the youth future-ready. And all of you are actually very fortunate that India holds a distinctive advantage over most parts of the world. With the largest school-going population, we have the largest school-going population, close to 260 million students in our schools. 66% of our population is in the working age groups. Half our population is actually under 25 years of age. The average age of an Indian is just 29. Compare that with, let's say, 37 of China, 38 of China, 48 in Japan. This means a lot. If you think for a minute, we'll understand the gravity of the last statement. Our country's youth holds the future of the nation in their hands. This means that we are the workforce of tomorrow. And I'm talking for you. While it's great to be home to a population with an average age of 29 and such a young population, it can work in both ways. This demographic dividend, if we are not able to capitalize, we need to, and how do we capitalize? We need to make sure that students and youth have access to the right kind of education. With access to quality, technology-driven, technology-enabled education, we can actually harness the talent of this future workforce. And democratization of education will actually bring in the equality and learning for all. And you might think about the digital divide today, but the inequities and the disparities in the physical world are a far bigger hurdle which can be reduced through technology, where it brings novel opportunities to the masses and then gives students a chance to learn from best of the teachers and best of the content, no matter where they live, whenever they want, wherever they want, and how many ever times they want. That's why technology is a great equalizer. In India, where I mentioned education is still the only way for most of us to make it big. This gives us, if we get it right, that will become our biggest advantage over the next many decades and helping us in our way to becoming one of the global superpowers. In the next decade, you'll actually see a whole range of new jobs emerging for you to take advantage of, and if you are ready for it. As per the World Economic Forum reports, almost 65% of the students, those who are joining in school today, they will end up working in jobs which are not even defined today. It's only through good education. When I say good education, it's only through active learning. How do you create active learners? How do you make sure that they love learning? Because once you make sure that students love learning, where we unfortunately most of us the learning is still driven through fear of exams and not love for learning, and that's where we have created this movie-like videos, game-like interactions offered through platforms which personalizes the way it's offered to the students, personalizing based on the size of learning, pace of learning, and style of learning. That's been the approach. Creating products at the intersection of content, media, and technology is how we have been able to differentiate, and why it's important to create this active learners or continuous learners, because in maybe 10 years back, 20 years back, most of our parents, they used to enter a job and used to be in that same job for the entire 30, 35, 40 years of their career. But today that is changing, and it's changing so fast that if we are not changing as companies and as individuals, we need to be ready to become continuous learners. Otherwise, we'll be left behind. So we actually need to create a community of active learners with the right skills and right future skills, aided by technology-driven, technology-enabled learning programs. And as I always tell, 21st century illiterates are not the ones who can't read and write. They are the ones who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Now, coming back to the inspiring theme of the National Youth Day 2022, it's all in the mind. This self-belief is the force that helps us to move forward with positivity and hope. If you believe that something can be done, and if you really believe that it can be done, your mind will actually find ways to do it. So it's all about how badly you want it. When you start living the life of your dreams, there will always be challenges, there will always be roadblocks along the way. But if you are passionate about what you do, if you have that self-belief, there is no limit to what you can achieve. And this is something which we follow even as a company. As a company, we have always raised the bar in terms of what we want to do or what we want to achieve. We keep an aspiration level which we think we can never reach, and when we are about to reach there, we raise the bar again. When we went, now to call out some of the things which we did, when we went digital, we were told that we are doing it too fast and too early. Digital at that time was featuring in the Vision 2022 documents of most of the organizations. We went digital in 2015 and was both amazed and humbled by the great response our learning apps received early, from the beginning. And in doing so, we actually moved the market by at least 5 years, if not more. The move from those big screens in stadiums to smaller screens, offline to online, offline tutorials to online apps, services to a product-based approach, truly personalizing it the way we were offering. It was considered too risky by many people. But for us, it was the only way to make millions of students fall in love with learning and thereby creating an impact. This courage of conviction comes from within, as I've told you. What we preach is what we actually practice at home. We only promote those products which we use at home. This is the only way our kids learn at home. My son learns from Byju's learning apps and Byju's classes. That's the level of conviction we have. And this is what makes all the difference. We are not like some of those digital entrepreneurs, those who ban everything which they get the whole world addicted to at home. In our case, it starts from home. And this conviction or this belief in what we do is what makes us think very long term, is what makes us take those big bets and make them work. Now, from just to give you some more on part of the journey, again, there are a lot of lessons which we have learned, and there are some of them can easily work for all of you. Like objectively talking about the scale which we have achieved, from 6 in the founding team, all of them were my students, to 25,000 plus family members today, from 20,000 students in those initial years to 150 million plus students today across the world, not just in India, but we have significant presence in US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, many parts of the world. Wherever we have launched this, for a change, we are we are taking it from India to the world. We are like, rather than using a cut, copy, paste model of something which has worked over there, I strongly believe that this is one of those few sectors where we can have global champions coming out of India. Now, like we have been able to like 150 million plus learners today across different platforms and in India and across the world. We have taken the model from physical to digital classrooms, from making in India to taking it to the world. We have come a long way in the last 10 years, ever since we started the company in its formal way. Byju's today, as you might be knowing, is backed by some of the world's largest impact investors who believe in our ability to dream higher, dare more, decide faster, and always learn from failures. We might be known as the largest or the most valuable edtech company in the world, but this is just relative success. There's a long way to go before we will even think of it as success. And the real fun is in what we are doing is not just in creating a billion-dollar company, but in changing the way millions think and learn. And the real return on investment is the positive impact we are having on a large number of students and the society in overall. It's immensely satisfying to know that we are able to ensure continuity in learning for millions of students, even during a pandemic like this. And most of which we are able to do. The best thing is that we are open to all possibilities, and we are able to move fast, agile, exploring new opportunities. In 2015, when we moved online, we actually wanted to create, our aspiration initially was just to create the largest edtech company in India, and we kept a target of around 4 years for that. But we were able to do that in just 1 year. Then in 2019, we announced that our aspiration is to create the largest edtech company in the world in 4 years. And we've been fortunate enough to do that in just 18 months. Last 6 years have been great for Indian edtech, but the next 10 is going to be even better. These are very early days. Why I'm telling that is, like, saturation is nowhere close. We're very early days in terms of what technology can do for education. This is one of those few sectors where its technology is making an intervention, and a late intervention. Unfortunately, it's such an important sector, such an important sector for everyone, which can play which can play a big role in the future of all of us. We, as I mentioned, we have a very good chance of defining this education technology sector globally, and you will see multiple global champions coming out of India. And though I will say that our aspiration is not just to create the largest for-profit education company in the world, but also the largest not-for-profit initiatives in education. Something which most of you might not be knowing is the fact that Byju's Education for All, though we launched that only 12 months back, is already providing free education to more than 3 million students, for most of whom this is their primary mode of learning, including that little girl from Nagaland, which I was talking about in the beginning. Access to world-class education is every child's birthright. Even government has launched many schemes and programs to make education equitable and accessible throughout India. We are proud to do our small bit by partnering with multiple initiatives, including Niti Aayog for its aspirational districts program. But again, these are also very, very early days. I strongly believe that the first one, creating the largest for-profit company, we have a good chance. But the second one, the opportunity to create the largest not-for-profit initiative in education, I'm 100% sure that we'll be able to do that. We are doing it with a very long-term approach. I come from that kind of a background, so it means a lot to us. And education is one of those few sectors where if we do well, we'll end up doing good, or if we do good, we'll end up doing well. Now, let me tell you why you are important, why you are luckier than most of us. If you want to become an entrepreneur, there is no time better than now, and there is no place, no country better than India. India currently has more than 80 unicorns, which are, as you know, startups worth more than $1 billion in valuation. But the best part is more than half of them reached this mark in the last year alone. From edtech to fintech, from hospitality to healthcare, you talk about across sectors. These startups are at the cusp of taking off, at the forefront of frugal innovation. Most importantly, we also have a mature startup ecosystem which is maturing fast, which includes entrepreneurs, investors, policymakers, incubators, accelerators, and other national and international stakeholders. Now, talking about numbers here, we in India today have we have more than 61,000 recognized startups across 55 industries is what I was seeing last time. In fact, we have the third highest number of startups in the world. And world is looking at us as the next place for growth and innovation. Indians are already creating benchmarks and showing that we can create leaders for the world. And because I strongly believe growing up in an uncertain environment like us, where there is a lot of madness, but we still have our methods, and like living in a diverse country like India, growing up in a country like this is a huge advantage. That's why, like today, like most of the large corporations, they want you will find so many Indians at the top, not just the well-known CEOs whom you might be reading about every day. And these, like, good part is these startups are generating employment at scale today, creating wealth, but more importantly, adding value to the society. Just to talk about some numbers, which are like an initiative which we started last year, where we have teachers in India teaching students across the world, especially the English-speaking world. And in the last 12 months itself, we have created more than 12,000 teaching jobs. These are like tapping into a large, high-quality, unfortunately underemployed, unemployed graduate women, and they teach from India to the world. And the opportunity to create many more, hundreds of thousands of teaching jobs do exist for anyone who actually wants to create or take up this opportunity. It's almost like what IT services did to create hundreds of thousands of jobs, engineering jobs in the last couple of decades. Here, there is a similar opportunity, and there is no perception disadvantage here. When it comes to topics like math, coding, and STEM subjects, we have a huge advantage and also a large talent pool. In India, workforce, like contribution of women is just around 25%, and actually dropped in the last, like during the pandemic, where close to half the graduates are women. So this is an untapped opportunity where we can create these hundreds of thousands of teaching jobs, teachers from India teaching students across the world, and that's a big opportunity. This is one of the many opportunities which we have been able to capitalize. But like anyone with the right intent and with the long-term approach can make a big difference. This is the right time to start up. Education and education technology is at a stage where things are just getting defined. There is, if you are thinking of starting up, really seriously think about the opportunities, like or the potential in our sector itself. There is an opportunity to improve the way students learn, teachers teach, how institutions can go online, and most of these things are like very early days, and they are just getting defined. It can be done in India, it can be done globally. Like the fact that there is in US or like there is not even a single $10 billion education technology company is giving you the opportunity, is clearly showing you the opportunity that there is a space to be taken. So like and even when I'm talking about, we are probably the largest, and by far, like in terms, it's still very early days, and like it's unfortunate that there are no like $100 billion companies in this sector for such an important sector. So and the one important statistics and something which I like close to half of the startups in India are founded in these small towns or by those who come from small towns. And as I said before, coming from a village or a small town is not a disadvantage here. In fact, it's a sustainable advantage in entrepreneurship, because growing up, you actually learn how to find your way out. India is poised or on track to become a $5 trillion economy. This trifecta of ambition, skill, and access to capital are in plenty in India today. And as I told you, that there is a lot of capital available. It's not like 10 years back, 15 years back. Today, the whole world is looking at like the very bullish on India and technology and how India as a country will grow over the next many decades. And that's why there is so much capital chasing. So that won't be a constraint for any one of you. And if you have the ambition, and skill is something which you can always acquire, as like this trifecta of ambition, skill, and access to capital is what is required to pursue your dreams and to solve problems. It's also important that it's not just about pursuing your dreams. You also need to make sure that this is something which there is a real need and something which can solve a problem for for people. And that's when you can find and like a business opportunity. And we all feel that rush of rising India today, and then we all want to contribute to our best in as part of this growth story. And if we put our minds together, I'm sure we can launch 1 million more startups in the next 5-10 years to realize our Honorable Prime Minister's vision of making India for the world. And but the key is, if you have an idea, you have the perfect ecosystem today, even much better than 5 years back or 10 years back, to implement it in India and then take it to the entire world. All you need to do is truly believe in that idea. Starting your own venture, it might seem difficult at first, but isn't it everything difficult at first? I'm not just positive, I'm confident that you will succeed if you are taking a long-term approach. And anyway, what is there to lose? There is nothing to lose. There's absolutely nothing to lose. In fact, like you might think that trying out entrepreneurial ventures is a risk, but not taking a risk is actually the biggest risk, as you would have heard that before. So talking about Byju's, we have now we have more than 100 offices in 21 countries, from Mexico, Brazil, USA, Canada, and on one side, in the west to Singapore and Australia in the east, and many more in between. But it is still the smallest office in India, in Koramangala, Bangalore, which is my favorite. It's in that small office that a group of ordinary people from India's small towns dare to believe in the extraordinary dream of teaching the whole world. It is in that small office that we built our first business model. And it's in that small office we actually disrupted our that time successful model to build a globally scalable online model today. All this was achieved because we believed in learning, unlearning, and relearning, doing everything through first principles. When people ask us, what's the best chapter of our story? I always get this question, but my answer is always the next one. I'll finish with a few things which work for me, and I'm sure some of it can work for you, maybe in a different context, but these are generic things. First, change the game from you versus others to you versus you. If you please keep an aspiration level which you think you will never reach, and when we are about to reach there, raise the bar again. That way you will keep learning and you will keep winning. If you can get into this game of you versus you, continuously becoming better versions of yourself, nothing will stop you from creating a positive impact. And the best part about this game is that you can keep on losing, nobody will know. But every time you lose, you win. And the second one is thinking big or dreaming big is important. But as I mentioned, that's only 50%. All of us dream big. But like most of us miss the other 50%. Other 50% is about hard work. It's about discipline. It's about rigor. It's about doing it step by step. Those small things. To reiterate, dreaming big is important, but goals are equally important. Dreams without goals are of no use. So have a life goal, but it's important to break it down to an annual goal, a monthly goal, a weekly goal, and if required, a daily goal. That step-by-step approach, and then finding that right balance between what you need to do for today and what you need to do for tomorrow. Like finding that right balance between the short term, like you need to be like stubborn when it comes to your long-term goals, long-term approach, but you need to be flexible in the way you execute like short term. And finding that right balance is the key for you to make it big in whatever you are planning to do. And last but not the least, contrary to what most of you might be thinking, this entrepreneurship is not a skill. That's why like you can't learn that. It's just a mindset. It's a mindset where you don't take no for an answer. If someone like me from a small village like called Areekode, south of India, can have this audacious dream of creating the largest education company in the world, I'm sure all of you can do a lot more. Let me tell you something very important. All of us are far better than what we think we are. All of us can do a lot more than what we think we can. I need to repeat this. All of us are far better than what we think we are. All of us can do a lot more than what we think we can. So what are you waiting for? Every day matters. So get ready to follow your dreams and start running. Have you given your, like I have one more question. Have you given your best? You might ask me in what? At least in things which you like. You should be able to tell yes with full confidence. But before that, do you know what you like? If I ask you a question, what do you really like? If you don't know the answer yet, there is nothing to worry. It's like time is on your side. You are just starting off. There is a long way to go. Most of the people Like most of the people, like, but you, like most in their 40s and 50s also won't have this answer. What is that you truly care about? What is that you are truly passionate about? First, go and find out what is that you like and what is that you are good at. Normally, there will be a huge intersection between what you like and what you are good at. Once you get an answer for this question, go after it like there is no tomorrow. Be at it till you get it. And you should get the confidence looking at me. I am not special. I am just a normal guy, just like you. And if I can, so can you. Wish you the very best in whatever you are planning to do. Thank you.